Since 2003, the world's elite have been able to indulge themselves in automotive hedonism from one of Britain's oldest surviving brands, Bentley. The Continental GT has been the car to own if you like a bit of substance with your style, and provided you could afford one, you could join an exclusive club with members in the royal family, billionaire industrialists, sporting stars and entertainers. But now low prices mean that almost anyone in the market for a new car can afford to enter the previously forbidden world. But getting there is only half of the story. Can you afford to live the dream? Keep watching. This is going to save you an awful lot of money, both on buying the wrong car and later on when the engine warning light comes on. If you're in the market for a Bentley, or you're just interested in what it's like to own a Continental GT, then this is a great video for you to watch. My name's Nige, I'm a plumber from North Yorkshire, and I bought a Bentley Continental GT 2 years ago. I've had mine for over 2 years now, and I saw a lot of videos before I bought it from people who maybe had it for a day or just borrowed it for an hour or two to do a video, and that really doesn't give you enough information to decide whether this is for you.
Can you imagine what it's like?
I hope this is for you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. If you do, please like and subscribe and keep me going. Thank you. I'm going to give you something a little bit different and a little bit more information than you would normally get from a standard review. This is basically my day off. So it's not Ferris Bueller, it's Nige Arbron's day off, and we're going to spend it in Nelly, my 2005 Gen 1 GT. So if you're wondering what it costs to run them, I've made videos about that, which I'll put here or wherever it appears. And if you're worried about the cost of maintenance and mechanics and things like that, that'll give you some more information about it. Insurance-wise, road tax, petrol, and all the other considerations when it's probably going to be a second car, and mostly a bit of a toy and a must-have passion purchase, then this is definitely a good place to start your journey. One of my most popular videos, and I've done over 60 now, was the road to Bentley. I can't believe how many people have endured that terrible video, and still only one person has slagged it off. Thank you for your candour. So I thought this is a little while later on. I've been doing YouTube for over a year now, and it may be a good time to revisit it and make a better job. The whole point of this video is to show you what it's like to be in a Bentley Continental all day doing ordinary things. And along the way, I'm hoping I'll be able to describe to you some of the slight concessions you'll have to make in order to enjoy your ownership of the car. There may even be stuff in here for people who've had one for years and didn't know what that button did. Because honestly, there are so many controls and gadgets in them. You'd have to read the handbook, and yeah, I'll be honest, I did, all the way from front to back to understand what sort of a car you're in. So the first question you need to ask yourself is, why do you want one? If it's for status, there's a little bit of that in everybody's buying decision. It's a lot of prestige to own a car like this, particularly if, like me, you never thought it would happen. But if you think it's going to make you better than anyone else or better than you used to be, it's not.
I'm rich, Mick. Richer than you.
Absolutely not for you, unless you're buying a new one. Always remember, there's someone with a bigger stick. There's always someone with more money or a newer car. So what other motives might there be for buying a car like this? Well, it's difficult to say. The truth is, it's a passion purchase.
Yeah, I'm in love, and I don't care who knows it.
You see one, you realise you can afford to buy it. You might not know whether you can afford to run it or not yet, but it's there, it's within your grasp. Something, sorry, a bit of an earthquake, something that you thought would never happen is coming true. And that could end up to be a great dream or a terrible nightmare, depending how you go about buying one. But if you're buying one for prestige and to feel better than other people, and actually I have to say, on all of the forums and groups I am on Facebook, I've only ever seen 2 or 3 people who are arrogant and stupid enough to think that a car makes you a better person. Most people who own these Bentleys, no matter how new they are decent people. They're really intelligent, they're kind-hearted, they're very helpful. It's a really nice community. You know, it's not like a terrible golf club where you're not welcome unless you're wearing the right tartan shorts. It's just not like that at all. And that's probably a popular misconception. And coming in, people might feel like they have to stop being them suddenly because they've got a nice car. It's not like that at all, guys. You know, these are motor cars at the end of the day. And while we're on that subject, can we stop calling them Volkswagens? They're not Volkswagens. Although 30 years ago, I would have been very happy to have a Volkswagen because they were meant to be so reliable. So why don't we call Lamborghinis Volkswagens or Bugattis Volkswagens? Yeah, we do. I think there's some people who've owned them and had a bad experience. Yeah, just bloody Volkswagens. Or there's people who never own one, who feel a bit envious, perhaps even jealous, and they'll say, oh, it's just a Volkswagen. It's not. It's a hand-built British car. Right, let's get that straight. It uses parts from the VW Audi bin because that just makes sense. And trust me, on occasion, you'd be very happy that that's the case. Because not only are they genuinely good quality parts, but also they're a lot cheaper if you get them from a VW dealership. So that's the first thing to strike off. So it's just a Volkswagen. Yeah, they're probably driving a 35-year-old Cortina. So forget about them.
Forget about it.
As for buying tips, when you're looking for one, ignore the usual rules, but there are some usual rules that you must stick by. Firstly, ignore low mileage as a good thing. These cars absolutely need to be driven or maintained as if they'd done the mileage anyway, okay? So they're very heavy, they're a 2.5 ton car. All of the suspension components, if it's sat around, can actually wear out just by sitting. A lot of the rubber and things perish. The tyres can perish. Just, I'll go flat at the bottom and things like that. So the low mileage garage queens, unless they've been properly maintained, regardless of expense, and had all of the normal things you would expect to do at the 60,000, 70,000, 80,000 mile service, unless that's all been done, they're probably no more reliable than one that's done 120,000 miles, but been serviced very well. But maintenance is key. When you're looking at one, ask awkward questions about maintenance. Stamps in a service book are okay, but actual printouts of what was done are really important. If you're buying an older one, you need to be asking if the vacuum lines have ever been done, particularly before late 2006. The engine had to come out to do the ones that went across the gearbox, unfortunately. After that, you can do them just by removing the steering rack. It's still a big job. Incidentally, if you're going to go into buying one of these and you're looking to spend, I don't know, 15,000, 16,000 pounds, you have to have another budget. You have to have a contingency budget of about 10,000 pounds, just in case the worst happens, okay? If turbo goes, it's engine out. If the starter motor goes, it's engine out. You get the idea. There's a lot of things you can do, actually. The alternator can be done with the engine in, but all the front module has to come out, all of the cooling pack has to come out. You just about have to disassemble the car to change light bulbs in them. So there are some quirks that are going to be expensive, and you would be really foolish to ignore that. So if you've got a budget of 25 grand, pay 15. Keep that 10 grand in the bank and then expect it to be spent. If you do that, you'll have a really good experience, because if and when the worst happens, you're prepared for it. The second bit of buying advice I'd give you is to look at more than one, right? And then the reason for this is because when you get in the first one, you're gonna fall madly in love with it. You can't help it. They're just amazing cars, unless it's a real turkey, a proper lemon and a bit of a nail. You're gonna appreciate what you're looking at. It's just, I remember the first time I saw my car, it was from the side of it, looking down at the rear wheel arch and this beautiful big 20-inch Mulliner style wheel and this gorgeous paintwork, and I fell in love with it there and then. I had absolutely no business buying this car, I'll be honest. It was a stupid thing to do, and I don't regret it, not for 1 minute. The amount of enjoyment I've had from cleaning it. I spend more time cleaning it than I do driving it, to be honest, because it's just so nice to stand back and look at. It's not just something to get you around. In fact, it isn't really that at all. I have a Mini Cooper and I have a van for work, you know, so it's something, if you enjoy motoring and you enjoy looking after cars, they're a really nice hobby to have. You know, my brother spends thousands of pounds a year traveling around the country watching his team lose. I don't, so this is my little bit of enjoyment and budget for that. But yeah, look at more than one car, look at 2, maybe even 3. Have a little budget for buying. If you are genuinely interested after you've seen the first one and you've listened to all the advice that there is on the internet and you've looked at all of the problems that might occur and you're still interested, then I would recommend you invest in a scanner. So VCDS is made by Rostec in the USA. It's basically a Hex 2 ODB2 port lead, which plugs into a laptop computer, which you'd have to supply, running Windows, and using their software, which they update frequently, you can scan the entire car for faults, and it gives very close to dealer level accessibility and facilities for reading the faults, for changing modules and everything else. And what I would recommend you do is to ask the vendor of the vehicle if they mind if you run a scan on it, make sure that the battery's charged up, rock up to the place, scan it, save the codes. Don't worry if there's an awful lot. These do come up with a lot of codes if the batteries go flat at any time, and unless somebody clears them, they'll be in residual memory, right? And then you take an hours long test drive. You'll get it up to 6th gear, you get up to 2,500 revs, get that second turbo kicking in, really feel it, give it, not the beans, respect these cars, they are so fast it's unbelievable, but make sure that you use the full range of functions on it, go back and then read it again and see what comes back from the first reading. Sorry, I should have said, after you've read them and saved them, clear the faults. The test drive will then ping back anything that's recurring or permanent. And that is just an amazing bargaining tool. And if you come back and you've got a list a mile long, if you understand what those codes mean, you'll know whether it's going to be a connected problem that kicks up 5 or 6 different faults, or you'll know if, for instance, there's a vacuum leak or a leak on the air suspension or any of those other good things. You'll be better informed, and you can take that to the seller and say, look, I like the car, but there's these things. I know that that's going to cost me 5.5 grand to do the vac lines. I know that that is likely to cost me 7 grand to replace a turbo and get the engine out and back in again. You know, because it's not just the actual turbo that you'll be replacing. While it's out, you'll do a lot of other things as well that need the engine out to do. So yeah, don't let it put you off too much. All cars have faults. The fact that these vehicles communicate with you and tell you what's going on and what's going wrong is really helpful. We're all scared to death of getting these error codes, but at the end of the day, they actually demystify what's going on. Yeah, so you just need to do a little bit of homework on it. And if you're gonna buy one of these cars, you need to buy the scanning tool first, right? This is gonna save you an awful lot of money, both on buying the wrong car and later on when the engine warning light comes on for any particular reason. Gives you the information which you can take out there onto the internet, forums like 6 Speed Online, or to the VinWiki, the VCDS wiki site, their own forum, or the Facebook forums that you can join. And with the right amount of information, there'll be people on there who'll recognize those codes, maybe even suffered the same problem themselves, and you will find that they'll be incredibly helpful. So there you go. Find one that you like, look at another one, don't fall in love.
Don't fall in love.
You know what I mean? You will fall in love with the first one you see, but don't necessarily buy something just because it's closer to home. I did that. I was lucky. I love my car. I love the colour of it, and I wouldn't change anything about it. but it could have been nasty, and it was because I couldn't be bothered to drive for 4 hours to look at another one. Right, don't be Nige. Be you, but with a bit of Nige learning. Go and look at a few. Then make your mind up which one you like more than the others before you get really serious. Right, so I've finished my porridge. It's time to spend the day with a Bentley. Come on. Proper cheesy, that. So the first cheap thrill of the day is actually just picking up the key. Obviously you need the glasses and the fake Rolex as well, if you like me. Never forgetting that we need to smell like we own a Bentley as well. So this is the Bentley Intense. My mate Darren says that his mum bought him some of this and he only ever uses it when the dog farts. Typical Darren. And here we are, cleverly and cunningly disguised as someone who should be driving a Bentley. I've got the sunglasses on the top of my head instead of wearing them at a jaunty angle. I've got my smelly on, I've got my fake Rolex. Oh yeah, it's looking good. And of course, this is one of my favourite things. Actually just approaching this car and thinking, God, that's mine. And they really do look superb. Even with all the bird poo. This has been clean for 3 days. Yeah, so thanks for that. Now, if all's going well, keyless entry works. And the first thing you'll be greeted with in my car is the need to remove this solar panel. I'll tell you all about that in a minute. But this basically just plugs in. Got it from Halfords. Wasn't expensive. These cars have really complex electrical systems, and unfortunately they don't really go to sleep that often. So you've got an alarm system that is continually working and draining the battery by a few watts. Even just these LEDs in the door tops can remove charge, and if you don't use it for a couple of weeks at a time, you'll find yourself with a flat battery. Now if, like me, you don't have a garage, this can be a problem. Oh. There we go. Now I would apologise for the rough and ready nature of this video, but the thing is, you're on a ride along. It's not going to be easy to set up all the shots and make everything like the Wix advert with sharp pencils and everything goes well. It's not going to be like that. So, what do you get when you start this car up? Let's see. Well, I'm going to use the button, so foot on the brake. So the first thing, which is a lot of fun, is that I've still got my wipers in wiper change mode. Because it's a job I'm doing. Just turn the music off. Now I am using go to wiper reset position. Is it on? And turn it off. And there you go. They're behaving themselves. That's good. So the first thing you'll notice is the warning light up there. That's for TPMS. Notoriously unreliable. Now, before a certain year of car, that didn't really matter because it's not part of the MOT. There is a way of actually turning this light off, but I check my tyres every week anyway. I got one of those little inflatable handheld ones, inflatable. I've got a battery powered tyre inflator with a gauge on it, and honestly I trust that more than I do anything else, so that's good. So when they start up in cold start mode, they'll generally rev to about 1,000 revs, and then after a few minutes they'll settle down. This is about 700 at the moment. When it's sufficiently warm, it'll go down to around about 500. See, although I'm just tickling the throttle there, she's very well behaved. Right, so as far as interior, down here we've got a set of buttons. The specification may vary from car to car, but generally this is the kind of thing you see. Hazard warnings are there. This is obviously the seat heater, which goes up to 6. Should go to 11 really.
Turn it up to 11.
This button here changes the ride height So if you live in an area with really bad potholes, or if you've got speed calming measures or very high curbs, it might be an idea to set it to the higher level when you're in town. This button here operates the rear spoiler. The rear spoiler actually does a strange thing. Let's put it up. I don't know whether you can see that, but it's up, and when you press it down again, it goes down in 3 movements. Just like that. Don't really know why it does that, but some people think there's a problem with them. There isn't. It actually just does it normally. This is for setting the ride comfort or sportiness. Press it and the option will come up on your infotainment system, or if you have the original equipment, it comes up there. Obviously that's seated for that side, and that's your stop start button. Here you've got your mirror controls. You can wind your mirrors fully back for parking if you want, but generally you want it facing the right. Obviously your mirrors are back out, and the one that you're most likely to adjust is the right hand mirror. If you set it to the front position, that actually turns on your heated mirrors. So you don't want to be leaving it on in that position, even though it seems logical to turn it all the way around. Leave it either left or right, generally. Right, so onto the steering wheel. Number of buttons on here. Obviously you got your radio, controls volume up and down, telephone if you use it. The menu button changes that central display, and then you can scroll through the options. Press escape to go back out. You can set a speed warning. It's set at 120 miles an hour at the moment, which is fine, but it's actually off anyway, so it doesn't matter. And you can change between current consumption, speed, range and distance. So you can do all of that. I'm just going to leave it on current consumption because I like that. It tells you what you're doing as you're driving, and it's amazing how just lifting your foot off the throttle a little bit can make a big difference to it, and you may even achieve 18, 19, 20 miles to the gallon. Oh yeah, they're pretty thirsty. I think on average I'm getting about 12 to the gallon, but I use it a lot in town, so that's to be expected. If I was on longer trips, I could expect somewhere around 20 to the gallon, driving carefully. But don't expect any more than that. You just ain't going to get it. So one of the things that's really surprising about this car, I say it's 2 years since I bought it, is every time I get in it, it smells exactly like it did the first time I got in it. And I think the reason for that is that the materials that are used in these cars, there's 7 cowhides apparently, hidden, dotted around between the leather roof lining, the leather dashboard, the leather knee rolls, the leather door cards, obviously the leather seats and everything else. There is so much leather and quality materials and natural wood that it just gives off its own fragrance. And it smells like it should. Videos can't be scratch and sniff, but if they could, you'd know what I mean. The fact that it's there every time you get in it though is just always such a surprise. With other modern cars, they might smell nice for a few months or a couple of years, but 20 years and still smelling like a drawing room in a private gentleman's club. Yeah, that's something else. Okay, let's go shopping. So what's it like to drive a Bentley? Okay, well, you're obviously aware that you've got a 6-litre W12 engine under the bonnet that when new was capable of propelling the car from 0 to just under 200 miles an hour in a very short space of time. 0 to 60, I think it was about 4.5 seconds, could be wrong. You can correct me in the comments, but certainly it's quick enough. And yet, honestly, for all of that power and all of that speed, I'm very rarely ever tempted to drive it fast. It is just such a comfortable, luxurious motor. And actually driving something like this changes the way you drive, in as much as you become quite a gentleman, really. You feel like you would look like a complete tool if you were just flying around at 100 miles an hour and being a bit of a jerk. Maybe that's my age. I'm 60 next year, and maybe I'm just built for comfort, but it is so nice to know that if you need to overtake a few tractors like we get around here, I live in North Yorkshire, you can do so very safely and very, very quickly, because there is so much grunt available. But that grunt is equalled by the amount of torque. Now obviously I drive a lot of diesels, and one thing I like about diesels is they just have this low end power. You know, you don't have to be in a very low gear to get the performance from the engine. Same with this, it's just very, very easy, and it's a pleasure. The steering is very light, the brakes are excellent. The visibility, I've heard some people say, is disappointing, but I think that was on a Gen 2, Gen 3. On this, it took me no time at all to get used to being in it, and granted, my van is very, very big, and it's a Luton van. Ridiculous for a plumber to have a Luton van, but anyway, I digress. So I've probably got a bit of a leg up in terms of driving large vehicles and being used to large vehicles, but I don't feel hemmed in by this. It's not like sitting in a Lamborghini Countach or anything like that, where you're looking through a letterbox front and back. You don't feel the need to drive fast and hard. In other cars that I've had, it felt like that was the whole point. But this is just quietly understated. Despite looking the way it is and being as lethal as it is, because it's a proper weapon, you don't feel the need to show off. I think that's probably it. It has enough presence anyway to give you all the feels that you need, and people do look. I see people's eyes flicking across it. It's such a beautiful car, and I'm biased, but I think I got absolutely the right colour. So yeah, it's quite a relaxed experience. It's assured, it's powerful, it's pretty precise actually. You know, I've come from Range Rover Sports and things, so again, my perspective on it is probably different to someone who's had, you know, a sports car, an M Sports BMW or something like that, where the steering is incredibly tight and predictable. Right, we're in the car park at Lidl. Yeah, this is Bentley on a budget, so we're going to be at Lidl, aren't we? We'll be in the reduced aisle before you know it. Now, your choice of places to park is quite important with a car like this. Not just because you don't want some bell end scratching it and opening the car doors onto it, but you yourself have very wide doors. They're long, and they can make it difficult to get in and out of spaces. Just turn the engine off. Okay, so I tend to park at the end of runs, or I park next to the disabled bay, or next to the child and parent parking, or I'll go in a corner a long way away from anybody else. And I think that's just sensible, right? But you can almost guarantee when I get back to the car, no matter how carefully I parked it, there'll be a transit van full of migrants playing football. It's just sod's law, isn't it? But generally, I've never had any problems. People are quite respectful. I don't park where I shouldn't, and you know, that just isn't me. So let's go and get some vegetables, and then we'll have a look at the boot space. So we're back at the car. We've got a small selection of shopping, and there are 3 ways to open the boot. The first way is by pressing or lifting this switch here, and if I did that, you'll hear the boot open. Second is you have a button on your key fob for opening the boot. You press and hold that. And the third is a little invisible button under the skin of this B, which if you press, releases the boot catch. Okay, so you can see, apart from my cleaning cloths, it's a fairly big boot on these. You can get 2 decent suitcases in, no trouble at all. So my part week shopping doesn't even make a dent. And you can't do that with a lot of cars that are as quick as this, can you? One of the really nice things about opening a car like this is coming back to it. So that's a shopping experience. Pretty straightforward. Park in the right place, gotta get your gear, loads of room in the back, and it's all good. Life can be normal. Let's get up. So you'll have noticed all the bird poo on the roof of the car. It's been at least 3 days since I washed it, so I guess I'm going to be washing it again. So that means a trip to Granny Buzz's. She's got the garage in the water. And she doesn't begrudge me using it, do you, Mum? No. Thank you, sir. Something you will notice about driving this, and it's really quite surprising, you wouldn't get it in many cars, is that people are quite nice to you. I know. Even people who have absolutely no need to be nice to you seem to be. A little while ago, one of my cars was one of 6 or 7 cars in the street that was vandalised by some little scrotums who, for some reason, ignored my Bentley. They did the Mini and jumped all over it and smashed the windscreen, but they didn't do the Bentley. And I couldn't really understand it. And somebody else said, well, do you think it seems a bit serious? And I looked at the other cars that had been jumped on, and strangely enough, whether it's some psychological bent with scrotums, but it was all older cars. And I thought that was a bit strange. But maybe the thought of, oh, by the way, the windscreens on these, new £6,000. Yeah. So when you get one, make sure your insurance covers you for a windscreen. You don't want any of that in your life. There may be cheaper ones available, and you can probably get a used one. There are quite a lot of used parts available. There's a firm called Westminster Autos in North Yorkshire that specialise in breaking Bentleys and BMWs, Rolls Royces, and they're pretty good. But you've also got main suppliers like Flying Spares, who ship worldwide, and they also break Continentals. I always think it's a real shame when they get broken, but if they're not making the parts anymore, and there are a few parts that they're not making anymore, for instance the boot motor you can't get. I apologise for the shocking state of this picture. It's just the sunshine today is pretty bad. If I could make it better for you, I would. Next up, Granny Buzz's. If you want to know how it feels to drive one of these cars, it feels like this. Currently getting about 6 miles to the gallon, and it doesn't bother me at all. Yeah, it feels like a big grin. Gotta try it. So we arrived at Granny Buzz's to give her a wash, and we've got a video learning moment here. Now, when the batteries on these go a bit low, they forget settings. And one of the most common things that they forget is the position of the windows. And that can cause all sorts of weird problems, like your back windows. When you shut the car door, they can drop down and you think, oh Christ, it's going to be expensive. But relearning how to do that is actually very straightforward. And I did make a video, which I'll link up there, on how you do it. All you need is your ignition key in the ignition on ACC without the engine running, and you drop the window, starting with the driver's side, drop the window all the way down and keep the button held down for 3 seconds after it reaches its maximum depth. Then lift it up, and when it gets to the very top, hold it up for 3 seconds. Sorry about that. For 3 seconds. And what that does is it tells the window module the full height extent and the full lowering extent of the window. After you've done that all the way around the car, so it's driver's side, driver's rear, passenger front, passenger rear, then your windows will operate on a one-touch system. So you just click it up and it'll go all the way up, or click it and it'll go all the way down with a brief press, and you'll be back to normal. Your seats are another thing that will soon get forgotten about if your battery goes flat. But When we're on the subject of batteries, I did do a video about that, which I'll link or I'll put in the description for you, which tells you about the charging system on these, because it's quite complex. There's two batteries. One's what they call a house battery. It's a big one. It's AGM battery, so it's a gel matting, alkaline gel battery, and they're pretty tough and they're very reliable, but when they get low, they fail to talk to some of the modules on the car, and you can end up with loads of problems that you have no idea what the solution is for. They don't seem anywhere connected to a battery, but trust me, they really are. And all you need to do is to fully charge your battery. Again, watch that video and it tells you how to do it safely, and you'll probably find that most of those problems will go away after a short drive. Okay, so here we are at Granny Buzz's, and I'm not actually going to make a video about washing the car. I've already done one of those for you, but I'll do a little before and after. It is worth mentioning a few things though. You can use a jet washer, but you mustn't ever wash around the window seals, and avoid the rear lights, and try to keep out of the front grille and where the spoiler goes down as well. These are all known to block. I made a video about clearing those drains out, but you don't want to push your luck, particularly around the door seals and the glass in the windows. These are pillarless coupes, which means there isn't a bar between the front window, the door and the back. So creating a seal in there is actually tricky, and when they get to 20-year-old, they're only going to be so good, and you don't want loads and loads of water pouring into your door pockets and things like that. Okay, go on and give it a clean. And there we have it, 5 minutes from start to finish, and she's looking better again. And literally it was a 5-minute wash and a leather off. She gets cleaned pretty well very often, but you know what, it's one of the easiest cars that I've ever had to clean. The lines just help it because they're so smooth, there's nothing to catch your fingers on. Yeah, so even washing this car is good. And one small but reasonably obvious thing to check is that when you turn the ignition on, the engine warning light comes on, the EPC comes on, and anything else like the battery charge indicator, they all come on. Right? And make sure they go off when you start it. All good. People have been known to remove these bulbs, especially when they're trying to sell a problem car. Just a little tip. So there we have it. One nice clean car, and my morning has been used very wisely. Next we're going to talk about suspension components and air struts. Stay tuned. So the gearbox in the Bentley, certainly Gen 1, Gen 2, is a 6-speed ZF gearbox, also used by Jaguar Land Rover. And it's been a really, really reliable gearbox. Has the drive mode, obviously has sports. When you kick it into sports, it changes the dynamic of the car completely. So it changes the suspension, it opens up some valves in the exhaust so it's louder, it changes the dynamic curve response type on the accelerator, and it feels like a very serious car. Across to the left is manual mode, so you can actually change gears manually if you want to. You can also do that by using the Lamborghini flappy paddles. Once you press one of these when in normal drive, up and down, obviously that's the plus on the right hand side, then it stays in manual mode for a number of seconds, just to see if you're actually going to continue changing. But if you wanted to be in sort of command mode all the time, you'd be across there. And there may be times when you use that. Now, a lot of people haven't had an automatic gearbox before, and they'd be concerned about whether it removes anything from the driving experience. I've driven lots of autos, and this is probably the best one I've ever driven. I don't know whether it's just adapted to my driving style really well or what, but you know, when you're going down hills, if you're not accelerating, it changes down for you, always keeps it at a certain speed that you want to be at, and it's always ready for the next corner, which is really, really good. Now there's probably improvements being made. I know the new ZF gearbox is actually 8-speed, so that'll be more economical, and that seems to be the way things are going. And there is obviously a choice between having a W12 and a V8 in the later cars, but I think unless you've driven the W12, and particularly if it's just sort of a hobby car or a weekend car, I don't know whether a V8 would do it for me. I know they're really, really good. My mate Dave Maltby's got one and he absolutely loves it. He's had both and he much prefers the V8, but that maybe suits his driving style more. I like the big, lazy W12's amazing. Just one of the neighbours in the street here came out on Old Edge. She said, I thought we had boy racers in this street when you rolled up. And it's not because I was driving fast or anything, it's just the noise and presence of this engine. It's just amazing. Anyway, I'm going to go for a quick drive now and we'll speak to you in a bit. We're going to head up Oliver's Mount racetrack. There's a few more demanding curves and a little more use for the suspension than on the main roads. We're heading through the tree line. Again, some pretty bad potholey roads, and you can feel them and hear them, but it doesn't disturb the car like it would an ordinary vehicle, or certainly not my van or Sarah's Suzuki, as good as it is. So one of the biggest benefits is how comfortable the car is over longer distances. And of course the GT stands for Grand Tourer, and it's Continental because it's meant to be able to travel across the continent, or continents, not in continents, although you do have your moments. And the ride comfort really shines through when you've been in a vehicle for 6-7 hours and you get out and you feel pretty much as fresh as you did when you got into it. But this comes equipped obviously with different modes. There's comfort, if you like a softer life, medium, and then there's sports. And in sports mode it obviously stiffens up the shocks, gives you a more firm ride, and it's more agile in and out of corners and things like that. So it really depends how you want to drive and how you want to experience your drive to where you set it. You've also got a height adjustment as well. You can actually raise the car slightly, so if you're in an area with let's say speed reducing measures like sleeping policemen and things like that, then you can obviously lift her up a little bit. There's also another practical use for that if you're going slightly off-road, like an unpaved path or road, and you don't want to be bottoming out, then you would set the suspension to be just that little bit higher up. I think one of the things is that you get used to anything you're driving, and after 2, 3, 4 weeks of using a Continental GT, you'll start taking things for granted. But when you get into an ordinary car that doesn't have air suspension, after that you really feel it. A hairpin bend. So I am going to set the suspension for a comfortable ride at extra height. Bear with me. So while there's nothing particularly remarkable about having air suspension on a car, it gives people an awful lot of nightmares and fears when going into buying one. That's partly because some of the components that go, like the air struts, are pretty expensive. If you go to Bentley, you can pay £3,000-4,000 each, and they have to be done in pairs. That can be really off-putting. But similarly, some people go out and spend 600 quid on a pair from China or a pair of reconditioned ones and suffer no major problems for a few years afterwards. So it's horses for courses, and depends how much you want to spend on keeping your car right. There are a lot of maintenance issues on air suspension that you need to be aware of. In terms of maintenance, there's really not much you can do apart from inspect for leaks, keep an eye on uneven tyre wear, for instance, because that's a sign of your suspension having failed slightly. And if the car sinks down in any of the corners overnight when it's not being used, then that's obviously a sign as well that you've got an air leak in the system. Generally speaking, it's more about getting the system looked at regularly, and that's pretty much the least you can do. So in summary, the air suspension is one of the things that makes the Bentley so nice to drive and capable of doing the speeds that it can. You need to maintain it and look after it, and you need to bear that in mind when you're looking at buying one. My recommendation would be to get a qualified engineer to take a look at the components in the system to make sure that you have no leaks and no bad news coming up. So, good system. Would you change it to coils and springs? Let me know in the comments. And so we come to the end of another great day with a Bentley.
Burning my bum.
She's burning her bum. These
On
cars,
said Bentley.
these cars do run very warm. We've been out for a nice run to Ravenscar after work, which is lovely. And we've done probably about 15-16 miles to the gallon on average. And we're back home
Bendy
now.
roads, isn't it?
Bendy roads, very bumpy bendy roads. Bit hard to film on, but not too uncomfortable to drive in.
Hard.
So now we're
On a
probably
roller coaster.
going to go for a pint.
Yeah.
Good?
Oh,
Right. So I hope you've enjoyed that and it's been useful to you. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments. And if you like what you've seen, then consider subscribing. If you've got a Bentley and you want some advice on how to keep them on the road, then become a member. And look forward to seeing you then. Right. Happy motoring.
later.
Bye.